We first met, I think, about 11 years ago, 2003, when we had a sausage sandwich. We've been having a few sausage sandwiches ever since.
Absolutely. You were a fresh-faced young graduate, I remember.
I think you're paying for them next time. I mean, right around then, it was full of the Sarbanes-Oxley, corporate governance type of issues were everywhere in the press. People were very concerned about the position of legal counsel or the general counsel. I was just wondering, just generally think over the past 10 years, how do you think the growth of the in-house counsel, group general counsellors has changed, really?
Well, I think probably 10 years ago, I was still in my Sarbanes-Oxley rant phase. That was a great knee-jerk reaction to Enron. I think both measures were, Enron was an excess and so was Sarbox. And I was in an SEC registered company then. I'm no longer SEC registered, so I'm very relaxed about Sarbox now. I think it's probably quite good. Over the last 10 years, I think that GCs have, certainly in the UK, caught up a little bit with their US counterparts. There are more GCs in the boardroom. There are more GCs with a higher executive profile in the general community. I think we are slowly but steadily catching up with the US in terms of the influence of general counsel. Certainly when I started, I mentioned yesterday, it's almost 30 years ago to the day, the US was a generation ahead in terms of in-house legal. When you announced you were going in-house 30 years ago, people commiserated with you. You said, oh, well, sorry, it didn't work out.
Are the accountants still in control, do you think?
Of what? Accountants will always strive to get control of legal budget. That must be resisted at all costs. But the most unnatural act of all, of course, as you and I have discussed, is a lawyer reporting to an accountant. That should never happen. And I think it behoves this generation of general counsel to ensure that we are reporting to chief executives and chairmen, that we are at the board, if not on the board. There are debates either way. But certainly there's a sort of pioneer generation in the UK that have blazed that trail. And hopefully those that come behind us will benefit from that influence.
And 10 years ago, when we first started up the client satisfaction report, the two most important things for purchasers of legal services were quality legal advice and service delivery. And 10 years later, the most important things were quality legal advice and service delivery. Is that how you see it over 10 years? Has anything changed in that time?
Well, I think nothing if not consistent. Well, I'm not sure there's anything else you can prioritize if you're an in-house lawyer. I think, we need external counsel to provide specialist expertise we can't carry or sustain internally. I think we need it in a timely way, so service delivery is important. I think there have, however, been step changes in the level of support from private practice. Certainly in our department, the amount of sharing of knowledge by law firms has increased significantly over 10 years. So I think those criteria have stayed the same, but what it takes to match them has probably evolved over time. Certainly law firms have got an awful lot better at setting out a menu of things that they can provide to in-house lawyers. Cost will always be relevant. Cost efficiency, we discussed that yesterday. We talked about the Serengeti program. There are lots of programs around to help us manage more efficiently. But in terms of external law firms, always quality and timeliness.
I mean, when we ask verbatim comments about what would they most like to change about the level of legal services, it's always we'd like to pay less money for it. So cost has been quite a big stick with which to beat law firms since 2008 onwards, really. Do you think it's driving structural change in the way that deals are staffed and resourced and the way that law firms are structured?
Yes. I mean, I think law firms now are better run businesses than they were 10 years ago, and much better run businesses than they were 30 years ago. They've had to be. There are fewer older partners around now. I know it's getting to be quite a short career, I think, in both accountancy and law, and a very tough one. So no, I think they have adapted. A lot of them have brought in professional managers themselves. So they are now well-run businesses. and some of the larger ones, quite large, complex international businesses. So they are better run, and there are things that we can learn from them as well in terms of, talent development, through career planning, for, what does good look like for your in-house legal career. We've stolen with pride from a Magic Circle firm, with their knowledge and assent, I should say.
I was going to cover the sort of staff development issue. With one of the other studies we do is the employee satisfaction study, which every year we ask the question of private practice lawyers, which other private practice firm would you most like to work at? And the answer overwhelmingly this year was in-house.
Yes.
Is that a surprise? I mean, there's such a big draw for in-house. Are you being overwhelmed with candidates?
Well, there's certainly no shortage of candidates. I think the grass is always greener, isn't it? I mean, I think if you are, a second or third year associate in a law firm, it's probably immensely hard going. Your productivity rate has to be high, your availability has to be high, and you probably have limited client contact. In-house, you're going to get immediate client contact, probably weightier matters than you're dealing with as a principal within a law firm. So we do have an attractive proposition. But, at the end of the day, law firms are consulting businesses, and that is the nature of the practice. You're going to have the tyranny of the billable hour, the need to sell and sell again and again, and the pressure of delivering to a group of expert and demanding clients, particularly amongst in-house lawyers. In-house practice has different pressures. Some do retain the billable hour. We don't track our timekeeping down to that level of acuity, as it were, but we do track how we spend our time, but it's our measures of legal value add are very clear, and we're looking for business outcomes, and so it's a richer, more involved way to practice law. You still get the hospital passes, you still get the bundle. We've had one in the company where I now work, where the top email on the bundle is, on the disclosable emails, better get this to legal, we haven't got a leg to stand on. And so we still get that wonderful stuff, but we do get the chance to influence and create what we call a more legally astute company, a less accident-prone, more knowledgeable company. And at the senior levels of legal practice, most people are participating either in the executive team that's running the legal department or in an executive team that's running part of a large and complex business. So, I think it's an interesting proposition.
Maybe the word mention of bundles might be leading us on to a conversation about technology. You mentioned earlier about how technology has improved legal services quite dramatically, and it's certainly part of the way that law firms are looking to improve service delivery. I mean, in terms of the exchange of know-how, for example, is that something that you've seen quite a number of changes with over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the basic proposition of legal education 30 years ago was that you would learn as much as you could from a large series of books, having spent a lot of time in a legal library as an undergraduate and professionally qualifying. And then, like a sort of medieval guild, you would eke that out for reward over the ensuing decades, just watering it occasionally to keep it current. It's a gross oversimplification, but I can see it's resonating with some of you. That's no longer the proposition, So the sort of squirrel approach to legal practice of, gather nuts and harvest through the cold times is not sustainable because infinite information is available on tap, just a mouse click away. So there's much more openness with information. Now it's about analysis and the application of experience and judgment. So information is common. We have what we thought when we brought it in 6 or 7 years ago would be a killer internal app, the brilliantly branded Elvis, lawyer's virtual information system.
Has Elvis since left the building? Or?
Elvis is still in the building, but he gets about as many visits as a Las Vegas wedding parlor. I think people use Elvis as a portal through to law firms and professional publishers gateways. So I think, neural networking of information is critical, but it's the analysis. The things that are immensely valuable certainly for me, are the law firm news flashes, the updates, the one-pager, things you need to know about most recent developments. I'm not an employment law practitioner, but I do like just keeping up with, major developments, as I think most of us do. So continuing education is brilliantly supported by IT. And there's a lot of new legal services coming up. And I think if you're a processor of very high volume, low value transactions, IT offers some real practical money-saving solutions to do legal work more efficiently.
And what about relationships or client partners? A lot of law firms in the last 5 or 6 years, maybe even 10 years, have spent a lot of time and effort trying to structure client-partner relationships and put you in touch with someone who's going to solve all your problems, obviously. Is that something that they do better than they did 10 years ago, or is it something that's an evolving role?
It's hard for me to judge because most of our law firm relationships are operated at the level of my direct reports. Otherwise, I need never pay for a lunch. But I don't have time to tend those relationships. So we've eked out relationship management across our top team. I think they are very good at managing relationships. We touched on this yesterday in the discussion. Question mark, are we as corporate legal departments as good at reciprocating? All legal matters are a garbage in, garbage out process. I would plead guilty on occasion in my career of having lobbed stuff over the wall at external counsel because I haven't got the capacity to prepare a proper file, order the papers properly. So we need to put our own house in order and make sure we reciprocate. But I still believe it's a relationship-based activity, between law firms and in-house legal departments. It is not purely transactional.
We are tweaking the survey slightly this year, which is in the field shortly after this conference. So to get people to nominate their best client partners. Obviously, it's not you we should ask, but maybe some of your direct reports.
I still see law firm. The problem is, of course, people become managing partners. You've known them for a quarter of a century. Sure. Those they've gone up, they do managing partners. They don't do much hands-on relationship management. But for those of you who have been in-house for less than a decade, give credit to those who came before you, because when I started, law firm partners used to motor straight past legal departments because the relationships were with senior executives and particularly chairmen. And what are now the Magic Circle firms used to assiduously cultivate chairman and chief executives. I've actually worked for a company where when I arrived, I said, could I see the panel list? And I was given a telephone directory of a Magic Circle firm because the corporation was captive to one Magic Circle firm. And I've actually seen that on both sides of the Atlantic. It's all changed now. It's more diverse. And I think most law firms recognize that it's in-house counsel who are going to make those selection decisions. But it wasn't always so. It used to be very different. And so that's hard-won ground.
If I was to throw in an old chestnut question about, what do you think will be the changes in the next 10 years, assuming that you're still here chairing the conference, we'll be having this chat in 10 years.
I'll probably be in a Zimmer frame in the back corner.
It would take a little bit longer to get you to the stage,
Yeah.
but it'd be fine. What do you think you'll be seeing in 10 years' time?
Mystic make time. I think that we are an evolutionary profession rather than a revolutionary one. I've never quite bought into the fact that we'll be replaced by robots anytime soon, simply because there's no robot with enough judgment even to pick up a piece of paper from the floor yet. I do think, however, that there is a dramatic change in the workforce, and I touched on this yesterday with the fax machine story. Certainly we're looking as a department and as a company at the grads that we're now getting and the docs and postdocs. They don't work the same way that those of us in this room do. We're a transitional generation, boomers, X's and Y's as they call them. but the so-called millennials have a different work style. They, what we used to call multitasking, they don't see as multitasking. If you see a person under 20 and you watch them on a machine, they have lots of tiles open at the same time. They think nothing of integrating their social lives with their working lives, and in their working lives, many different things. And you can be writing a dissertation for your, final degree qualification at the same time. You've got Facebook open and are trying to arrange what to do on Saturday night. And when they come into the workplace, it's quite a shock for them, because it's like being thrust back into an earlier time. Not quite the sort of bearskins and clubs level, but they do see it as being very different. And I've been working with, a hand-selected group of young people who are very vociferous, actually, about what it feels like coming into a big multinational from being a student. I think the impact of those people will be dramatic over the next 10 years. They simply don't work the same way we do. And if we're to capture the benefits of their brain power and productivity and continue economic growth, many of our workplaces and work styles are going to have to adapt. I think in 10 years' time we'll see the impact of that.
Thank you very much, Philip.
Thanks.
It just leaves me to say it's the 2014 Client Satisfaction Survey is in the field, and I'd encourage everyone who's eligible to fill it in. And we look forward to speaking about it next year. Thank you very much.